Each generation develops its wealth and passes it down to the next generation, right? Right, that's what you see with the Trump family. And you can't see when you look at the Bidens. You can't see Hunter Biden ever producing like 5 healthy children that grow up to be total winners, right? No, he's a crackhead, sick pedophile, incest pornographer, right? That's what he is. And he's a traitor. The guy's a fucking traitor. It's not bad enough to just be a traitor, right? He has to be a crackhead, pedophile, incest pornographer traitor. I mean, there's no way these people are going to produce another generation of kids after them that are going to grow up to be winners, guys. It's not possible. And then their kids, they go right into the mud. They devolve. And so you would have these wretched, devolved, subhuman traitor pigs like that trying to destroy our beautiful people, our beautiful winners, our beautiful billionaires. I don't think the world has billionaires all over. I don't think you have billionaires in Saudi Arabia and in the Emirates and over in China. I don't think you have any of those billionaires without America, guys. No, I don't think you do.
But they want to go even further and say they can use the court system to own us as chattel. They're trying to recreate the equivalent of legalized slavery in America. When you're saying that you have the right to own a person's public image, own a person's public speech, own a person's public representations, don't you own the person? Isn't the person then thereby chattel? So it's a form of chattel slavery all over again. And they want to use the receivership process and the bankruptcy process to create this perilous precedent that would endanger all of us.
And they admit that. We've got Hillary and the Democrats and John Kerry saying ban the First Amendment, take everything from everyone that we don't like. That's the social credit score. Here it is.
Exactly. And this is how it's enforced. It's enforced by you get a crazy judgment based on some dissident speech from a thick show trial where the appellate courts abandon their constitutional obligation for politicized purposes. And then you use the collection process, the enforcement process, to be able to shut them down. I mean, it's like I was up just this week in Pennsylvania before the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania arguing for Amos Miller, the Amish farmer that they're trying to shut down. AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com. You can go and look up all of his great food products that he has. And they're trying to shut him down right now. Even though the legal system says if you think what he did was a mistake or wrong, you can sue him and you can get a monetary recovery or the state can seek civil penalties. They're like, no, we don't accept that. We want to prohibit him from making food, period. They were actually seeking an injunction to prohibit Amos Miller, an Amish farmer, from bringing food to his neighbors, for bringing food for an Amish wedding. We're right about, November's Amish wedding season.
And they admit they want to set a precedent, and he is your client, and they admit they're trying to destroy him even though he's winning.
Exactly. It's just another illustration, whether it's political freedom in your case, whether it's food freedom in the case of Amos Miller, or look at the case of Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus, who was exposing how the intelligence community was trying to get into the Bitcoin camp and co-opt it and mitigate Bitcoin's power and tool to be a alternative exchange economy based on a currency separate from central banks and central governments. And is it a coincidence? The only guy that's ever been criminally prosecuted on an exit tax interpretation, on a Bitcoin tax interpretation, is the guy that was exposing the intelligence community's attempts to infiltrate the Bitcoin movement and to usurp it and co-opt it and limit its ability to be a revolutionary tool for people. So that's the financial freedom aspect. And Roger Ver is currently facing extradition in Spain, where they're trying to lock him up for life for simply asserting what all of our rights should be independent.
And they arrested the head of Telegram, and they're trying to arrest Elon Musk. Let's speak about Musk. I mean, he is totally hardcore now. And then I want to get into false flags, civil unrest. The Pentagon put out a new report. I'll show it, saying they're going to use lethal force on Americans. I mean, this is a scandal of scandals, something we warned about forever. Here's the DOD directive right here. We'll do an overhead shot. Here's the report on it on Infowars.com. DOD directive expands domestic military authority to include lethal force documents. So on one hand, smarter parts of the establishment are disengaging this, but other parts of it are rampaging forward. The Democrats are openly saying they're not going to certify Trump's election. What do you think they're going to pull? What are we facing?
Well, I think, we saw a glimpse of it with the FEMA response. I mean, you've been on the front edge of reminding everybody that FEMA's history is not as a disaster relief agency. FEMA's history went by other names in the past, but, FEMA is the movie Dr. Strangelove portraying that big, underground place where everybody was going to live in the case they nuked the world. That was FEMA's predecessor agency. Most of FEMA's money was dark budget money. The reason why X-Files always portrayed FEMA as this shady agency. And is it a coincidence that one of the first things they start doing in response to the North Carolina hurricane is, one, to politically not respond in an adequate and effective manner to prohibit the scale of that disaster and not provide immediate relief, but then try to assert exclusive jurisdictional authority under the guise of a natural disaster to claim that they can exclude and even criminally or civilly punish anybody who tries to provide aid, anybody who even tries to, I mean, the joke was that FEMA arrested Noah for trying to help people avoid a flood. But that, Babylon Bee headline, but it wasn't far from the truth of what actually occurred. And what are they doing? They're trying to use natural disasters like they did with COVID during the pandemic, use that as a pretext. Remember, that was the X-Files script with your old buddy there that was doing the X-Files shows. It was that they would use a pandemic or some other natural disaster to come in and cover up other illicit activities and to be able to deprive us of our liberties. And they tried to do it during COVID. They were doing it in Western North Carolina, right under, saying that they had authority that they didn't have. They have no authority to override anybody. FEMA's only authority is to help and assist. They have no authority to exclude, no authority to deny, no authority to deprive people, no authority to tell people they can't fly their helicopters in, no authority to tell people they can't fly drones in, no authority to tell people they can't provide direct aid. But they were threatening people with that to intimidate them. So we've already seen a glimpse. They will use the excuse and pretext of civil unrest, a natural disaster, a so-called pandemic, to try to steal all our liberties and rights. They did a mass Milgram experiment on us in COVID. You can expect that they're going to try to do something like that again. And I think we have to run on that parallel with the risk of them trying to instigate or provoke a world war, which Russia's not working because Putin's not complying. So with that kind of global war prospect. And now I think, look at all the escalation. And I think they're trying to tell Trump that it's the Iranians trying to kill him when it's the deep state that's trying to kill him. Because they want Trump world to be online with going after a war with Iran as their next hotspot to trigger, and Netanyahu's hot-tempered enough that he might risk it or gamble it. So I think our biggest risk of an October surprise probably isn't, we've seen a glimpse of it with how they're going to try to handle natural disasters. That didn't work for them because it politically backfired, because people like the InfoWars audience are cognizant and conscientious and communicating using alternative media mechanisms to get the truth out. So that version of an October surprise isn't going to go anywhere. A good October surprise would be securing the border. A good October surprise would be fixing the economy. A good October surprise would be a peace deal out of Ukraine or the Middle East. But that's not going to happen because Harris isn't smart enough for it. The deep state isn't inclined to it. And Joe Biden doesn't want Harris to win the White House. He wants to say, see, only I, the great Joe Biden, could ever beat Donald J. Trump. That's what he wants to be able to claim. And everybody was wrong to doubt old Joe. I mean, that's why he liked to tell those stories when he was 7 years old and he came home and his mommy said, oh, Joe, they're picking on you. They just don't know how smart you and special you are. No, Joe, you're an idiot. Your mama was lying.
Look, Joe, you answered all the questions.
Exactly. That's who Joe is. I mean, you could just imagine that with his mother, right? I mean, that is Joe Biden to a T. That's why he secretly wants to sabotage Kamala Harris. He picked her because he thought they would never replace him with her. They thought identity politics would work. And working class minority men, millennials, and Zoomers don't care about her race and gender. They care about their wallet. They care about the risk they may be dead tomorrow from either borderless crime that's coming in with Venezuelan gangs taking over entire towns, whether it's parts of El Paso or Aurora, and they care more about being drafted and sent off to some stupid, idiotic war that leads them to be dead in the Middle East or Eastern Europe.
Absolutely. So bottom line, Trump's going to win big. They're in full panic mode unless they kill him, but they can still pull anything. But exposing them will make them back down if they know enough of us know they're behind it.
I think the biggest concern may be that we have out-of-control people. So that they enlisted a range of the most psychopathic, sociopathic lunatics in the world, neo-Nazis in Ukraine, various forms of Islamic terrorists, whether out of Afghanistan or the Middle East. They brought them into the country under U.S. dollars, or they radicalized them. They came from the U.S., sent them there, and radicalized them to come back. You got people like Vindman, who's running for Congress, for crying out loud. That guy belongs on the front lines of Ukraine, not on the front lines of Congress. Who basically winked and nodded when the second assassination attempt occurred, quite publicly. So I think the concern is, how many rogue guys do you have? I mean, so even if they realize that it politically backfire, if they try to take out Trump again, what's the risk that some of these guys, like the Ukrainian guy, may be off script? that they no longer have the control over. I mean, it's the way we've often talked about. The most biggest danger we face is not the moral corruption of the elites. It's their intellectual ineptitude. It's their inability to plan or prepare or predict adequately in such a way. That's what produced World War I.
So let's save Trump, guys. So it's not just about Trumpism. We have a lot of criticisms of Trump, more than anyone else. We're the hardest, most critical audience and supporters of Trump. Just the same way that we are with Alex Jones. We're the hardest core Alex Jones supporters that you could possibly imagine. Like, we show up when it's time, and we're there, right? We're there to respond when they're trying to kick in doors. We're like, we're going to show up, guys. But not until then. Not until then. It's nothing, right? There's nothing to do. But we have the hardest criticism against Alex Jones and against individuals who are going to put themselves out front. Because if you're not 100% accurate and 100% crystal pure on the doctrine and the messaging and the narrative that you're putting out, if you have 90% truth and then you have this one little part that you just leave out because it doesn't really work with your holiday seasons, it doesn't really work with your friends at your friend club or whatever, right? The people you have to answer to at the bank, right? You don't want to piss too many people off. If you get to the edge of that truth and you can't go all the way, it's not going to be you guys. Your generation is going to walk back and forth in the wilderness and die out. You're not going in the land. This next generation of Americans, we're going to follow the truth. We're going to understand it. We're going to take action, and we're going to execute that behavior and that walk and that pattern of belief and faith in our life and our Christian walk. So it's all about. It's about pleasing God, guys. It's about understanding the truth the way God does and seeing it the way He does and getting on the right page. We all need to be singing on the right hymnal page, right? And these papists, man, these Roman ritualists, they're there to drag America back, technically, academically, philosophically, structurally, and economically, in every kind of way, back into the submission of their old system, their old world order. That's what the new world order is. It's just the same old world order, just run with computers, just built with new infrastructure technologies. That's what you see in London. You see these new bridges that are really fancy and nice, having, graduated from the perfect technical, scientific, genius stonework to now doing the same thing with all the other elements and materials and building materials there are, right? Genius level structures over there. Phenomenal building that's it's unimaginable. And so that's what the world is up against. The world is up against the most intelligent, most sophisticated and richest, most advanced system of slavers ever contemplated or ever to arise out of human reality and human history here. You got to go back to like Pharaoh or Nebuchadnezzar or Alexander the Great to be able to comprehend the level of hubris and automatic, unrestrained narcissism. Can't even be reasoned with in the least. And that's what Jesus comes. Jesus comes and brings us the Renaissance. He brings us a pathway out of the Dark Ages, which would have just went on forever. Right? The system of Caesar's total enslavement, and which ultimately becomes the Roman papacy, right? Which we'll show in our series here. That total onslaught would have never stopped. And that would have been the end of humanity, the end of the genetic, biological system of a human being on planet Earth. But Jesus shows up in history right at that point, right around, I think, the reign of Tiberius Caesar, right? And he confronts that system, and he names it, and he points it out, and he changes and alters the direction of history. And that's what we need to do too, guys. Jesus said, you will come and do greater things than me. We're going to need to come and do greater things. We're going to need to alter history even greater, to a greater extent, and change the outcome of history through teaching the truth, through changing one mind at a time, one heart at a time, than even the Lord did. And our work is cut out for us here, guys. So we're here to, we're not a church. We're not a bowling club, right? We don't necessarily go hunting very often, but we're the book club. And that's the front entrance, the pathway to Skeleton Key 318. And there's several levels of initiation and graduation and development and conceptualization and understanding that you need to go through here. A chain of events, a chain of pedagogic advancement and development within yourself, within your soul, your spirit, your mind, your body, your whole deal. And for us, it was about like no more soft drinks. Like, I mean, some people are just, that's not even something that they even think about, right? But we had to go and change our diet. We had to go and change the way that we imbibe news and all this tremendous flow of information that's trying to pour into your mind and affect your psyche and your conscience and your consciousness every day. We had to find a way to put that stuff in a box. The addiction of social media, the out of control urge to spend hours and hours of the most crucial lifeblood of your time, the hours of your day, just sucked down the drain, down the memory hole, down these social media apps that just produce nothing, but just get you pissed because they show you, one racial group attacking another, right? They can show you, it doesn't matter which side of that you're on, you can be outraged for hours and hours every day. Eventually somebody is affected, somebody's mind is affected and their behavior is altered, and they go out and they do something crazy and they change the future, guys, and people die and people are killed and lives were extinguished. The government does it too. They cover it up. I mean, do we ever find out whatever happened in Las Vegas with that supposed Antifa guy who somehow got the guns in his hotel room and shot off multiple guns, but nobody knows? It was like, oh, there was this whole like, oh, it was a Saudi chopper on the roof. Like, it got crazy, right? It got Q crazy. Right? That QAnon is crazy, right? That's what they do. They do what they want, and then they spin you out with QAnon crazy. Well, we're here, guys. We're going to work our way through it, step by step. And a lot of these first 5 videos that you hear, that you're participating and listening to here, the first step of your initiation with Skeleton Key here, ultimately, all those videos were created back in late 2019, 2020. Not the videos, but the audio, right, for the podcast. And now, just recently, we created video content to go over it. So it's a very strange experience, because in 2019 and 2020, we didn't know what the future would hold. We didn't know what was really the important subject to talk about at that time. We were just talking about what was meaningful then. And we were talking about the outrageous BLM riots and all that, and trying to put it into perspective and explain what's going on. And little did we know how out of control and how destructive these cultivated and choreographed events of history and supposed protesters, the paid protesters, how many people were killed, how many lives were altered, how many businesses could never come back, how much of the future was changed from what it was to what it is now. We're living in that altered world, guys. We're living in an altered world where some financial tax shelters, right, or some dark money groups pour in Soros's money, which you can say is not his money now, and he can sue us all if we do. That money gets poured in, and all these paid actors, these paid vigilantes, take to the streets and raise hell and hurt people and destroy American society. And same thing with Zuckerberg. He's trying to go Elon Musk. He's trying to go to the right side of the equation. He's trying to show himself to be a good boy now, right? After he spent, 450, who knows how many, maybe $1 billion, right? Nobody really knows how much money, just a whole bunch of money. Blew it. Being accountable to his stockholders, being accountable to do a good job and be a good steward with the resources that his customers are giving to him. No, he just wants to go blow it to alter an election. How much of the reality of our lives was altered when they stole that election, guys? Those 13 fine soldiers and warriors who were bombed to death in Afghanistan, like, you see what I'm saying? We, in Kabul, we lost so much of our own rightful destiny, of the proper, organic, natural outcome of our lives was totally altered, not by our enemies overseas, but by the enemies domestic here, right in the United States, who won't keep their oath. They're oath breakers, they're traitors, they're treasonists. And according to the law, guys, that they have altered and abused and subverted and debased all this time, according to the law, they should be held accountable for those crimes.
So Jack Posobiec, former naval intelligence researcher, great friend of mine, some of the best analysis out there, joins us to talk about the big picture 24 days out and what he sees the globalist up to. Obviously, a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago, he said they are accelerating towards massive crises creation. I personally, Jack, agree with you, but I'm also seeing them pull back some now. Even in Ukraine, they're now talking about a peace deal and things. It seems like we're being brought up to the edge, or the technocrats have got both scenarios moving forward. But if they know that their crises creation will be blamed on them, or a Trump assassination will be blamed on them, that they will then not do it, in my view. How do you quantify the moment we're in right now? And let's get into your latest findings on the attempted Trump assassinations.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for having me on. And of course, one thing that when we put the book together, Bulletproof, and we put together the report, and of course, we had our private investigators, and we've had our private investigators since I made the announcement with you and Tucker in Reading, Pennsylvania, where we held the first Bulletproof briefing of announcing that we do have the private investigation team that is up on the ground doing the shoe leather work in Butler, Pennsylvania, as well as Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, where the first Trump shooter, or perhaps the first unit of Trump shooters, the first team of Trump shooters, made their attempt in Butler on J13. Then we also got the information of this individual, Ryan Wesley Routh. And I've just released a new report on Ryan Routh up on my X account that people can go and look at, talking about the Bulletproof Project, because Alex, when you look at the convergence of events that are going on right now, it's very clear what we see, that people do expect massive unrest in the wake of the election. As we hurtle towards this election, it's very clear that unrest is in the cards. And I've heard from high level that there are operational orders going out, that there are warning orders going out, saying something might come predicated on the election. And specifically, I got this from a high-level source. I haven't even released this on X yet. I'll release it here for the first time, Alex, because we're talking about it. But a limited bulletin went out last night to various law enforcement offices around the country, where I'm just reading this, warning of potential election day and post-election day violence by, quote, those emotionally enthralled in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So this bullet is going out, Homeland Security, FBI, to law enforcement offices around the country. Well, what does that mean? The second Trump attempted assassin, Ryan Wesley Routh, was this individual that was directly tied, and we were able to track him down using AI face tracking and tie him directly to a recruitment and fundraising video for the Azov Battalion. The Azov Battalion is this neo-Nazi battalion assassination team that was trained up by the CIA in the years even before the first Donbass war, even before the current situation that's going on in Ukraine now. He is directly tied to them, went to Ukraine, received training, and then came back from Ukraine to the United States, to West Palm Beach, lied in wait outside of Mar-a-Lago, lied in wait outside of Trump International Golf Course, uses this SKS rifle with the serial number shaved off, this rifle that no one has any idea how this guy, as a felon, he was going to get. And I've released this report on him already, talking about the fact of the matter is, if Zelensky's up there talking ceasefire, if Donald Trump is up there looking like he's going to win in the polls, if J.D. Vance is up there with his command performance at the debate with Tim Walz, then you know who really stands to lose from a lot of this: the military-industrial complex, BlackRock, Monsanto, everybody who's trying to get in on Ukraine. The entire Ukraine operation stands in the balance of this. So you're talking potentially billions and trillions of dollars on the line. And the Azov Battalion and the foreign fighters with the blowback operations like Ryan Wesley Routh would be the perfect patsies for this. So we've got this information, and I've got the book here in Bulletproof, and we've got Ryan Wesley Routh on the back of this, because I said hold the presses. We've got to get right there Ryan Wesley Routh. We're able to put him in the book because this information needs to get out. And when you purchase the book, when you pre-order, which is available for right now, those proceeds actually go to continue the investigation. So this is something where we're just throwing the money into this, where we're throwing it on forward to say we need to continue this ongoing so we can do our reporting, boots on the ground. If we have to send people to Ukraine, we'll send people to Ukraine, because, Alex, this is a very dangerous moment for Donald Trump and both J.D. Vance, because as it looks like they are closer and closer to winning. Keep in mind, Matt Gaetz came on my program on Human Events just a couple of weeks ago, the 5 assassination teams that have been launched after President Trump. 3, he said 3 are foreign tied, 2 are domestic. So the 3 foreign, we believe that the first one of those that we know about was Ryan Wesley Routh, with his ties directly to Ukraine and to the foreign fighters. And what I'm hearing as well about Routh is that he's in there in his cell right now down in the Miami area. His trial date is set for November 14th. He's been talking about going on hunger strike, and he is completely just babbling and rambling to guards, to FBI agents, anyone who comes in, about Ukraine, talking about, oh, we need to fight for Ukraine. Ukraine needs to win. So this has been the button, Alex. We know that Ukraine has been been the globalist trigger word for so many of these things. That is why they are spreading this out now, that Azov Battalion more than likely has inspired or potentially even sent more Ryan Wesley Ralphs back to the United States, and this wouldn't be the first time we've seen these type of blowback operations. Now, of course, Deep State wants to tell us it's Iran, but Lee Smith has the great report up there that you just showed, how essentially these are not Iran. They're finding, some Muslim teenagers or something, getting them to the United States, telling them, oh, you're going to come kill Trump, and then they arrest you because that's what they do. They entice you to come onto U.S. soil, by the way. There's something I knew when I was an intelligence officer, that what federal law enforcement does when they want to entrap you, if you're overseas, they then bring you somewhere that's U.S. soil and U.S. jurisdiction. So whether it's a U.S. territory like Guam or Puerto Rico, that would even count, or get you onto U.S. soil, then boom, they can arrest you, because that way they don't have to go through Interpol. They don't have to go through any of that chain of custody. You are already in U.S. jurisdiction. That's why they do these things. But they're doing it for a purpose, Alex, because look, and I'm just going to be very clear about this, and we talk about in the book, what if that bullet, and I just got back from the Butler rally there, the second Butler rally there this past weekend, what if that bullet had been 1 inch to the right? Well, if that bullet had been 1 inch to the right, we know that there would have been more than likely unrest all across the United States, and that unrest would then be put down by federal agents to a point where they would use that. They would use the unrest in the wake of a Trump assassination to create a January 6th style crackdown across the entire country. Now it wouldn't matter if you were just a Trump supporter who had gone to the January 6th rally. Now it would be if you were a Trump supporter, if you had a MAGA hat, if you had a Trump flag, if you were a conservative, if you liked Turning Point USA, if you liked Human Events, if you liked Alex Jones Show, if you watched InfoWars, etc. Now you're on a list. Now they're knocking at your door. Now they're potentially going to be confiscating your guns because, oh, you're someone who is involved with this domestic terrorist organization. Alex, that's exactly what they would have done. That's exactly what they would gear up for. And I do not put it past these people to potentially be looking at that in the cards as we go towards a Trump victory. So I know that he's doing all these events. J.D. Vance is doing all these events. I'm going to be at events with them in the next couple of days and weeks here. But we have to be steely-eyed when it comes to this, that both President Trump and J.D. Vance's lives are in danger, and then also to understand that the response to that, you would get this Hegelian synthesis. What they want is you to respond. They want you to respond because that will give them the enabling justification for a national crackdown and a complete criminalization on any support for Donald Trump.
Now, Jack, let's just stop right here. And it isn't about how we're smart. It's about people listening to us understand we've got the number of the bad guys. I've only heard you, myself, and Lee Stranahan in the last, Stranahan for like 7 years. He got sued over it for saying Ukrainian intelligence sheep-dipped money from the U.S. back into the United States was behind the Charlottesville stuff, which actually later came out to be true. They dropped the suit. But that's how upset the State Department was. State Department connected people came after me and him just for him being on the show saying that. He was the first I heard say that back during Charlottesville. I've heard you saying it for years. And we all said when they tried to kill Trump, even before, look for U.S. forces, trained political operatives in Ukraine, then coming back to stage race attack, false flags, be blamed on right-wingers. You were one of the first to talk about January 6th and actual foreign Ukrainians who've been in the military involved. And then, of course, when they tried to kill Trump at Butler, you and I were the only ones to be saying that because we understand history. Just like they used Operation Mongoose, the plan to kill Castro and what was tied to the funding in Bay of Pigs, to then kill JFK in Dallas in November 1963. So the intelligence agencies do the same tricks over and over again. And now that you're breaking...
Alex, I'll even do one better, because we've got information in Bulletproof in the book about how intelligence agency number one, how it was an intel agency that was directly behind the Garland, Texas shooting down in 2015, that it was the FBI right there. And number two, how they had Syrian foreign fighters that they were training left-wingers over in Syria with the YPG battalion over there, and then sending them back to the United States. And some of those guys were actually involved in Chaz in Seattle, where I ran into them back in 2020. So for people to think that this is all just happening at random, that these these armed groups and these armed trained fighters aren't involved in some sort of larger operations, you're not actually looking at history. So yes, Chaz was directly tied to intelligence operations that were going on in Syria. And so people have to understand that these domestic operations have a direct link to what our national security agencies have done overseas.
And why are we harping on this? Because if you and I and others understand this and expose it, then we decompartmentalize media, local law enforcement, good feds, who then whistleblow, and then that frustrates and derails these terror units and destabilization units. We saw the FBI a year ago say Trump supporters, with no evidence, are attacking power stations around the country. And then every time we saw it, it was a wound-up, mentally ill person, similar to what we saw in the Whitmer kidnapping stage false flag. And so now we have Mayorkas getting caught with the CIA bringing in a CIA-trained Afghan to try to kill Trump. We have this Pakistani working with the FBI. I think he was working with Iran to kill Trump. And because of leaks and whistleblowers, this is getting derailed. That's why we're harping on this. Not to say, oh, look, we're right. We're exposing the battle plan. Can you speak to that and what we all need to be doing 24 days out from the election, and what you think the bad guys' next move is going to be?
Well, Alex, look, we're putting this book together and we're conducting this on-the-ground investigation. We call it the Bulletproof Project, not because we're trying to toot our own horn. I wish we were wrong about this stuff. I wish this stuff wasn't going on. I wish I didn't have to live in a world like this. But because we care about our country, we care about our future, and we care about the truth. We care about the truth of what's actually happening, because if we can tell the truth, and if we can be honest with ourselves and honest with each other and get the truth to the American people, then we can move forward from there. So yes, are we looking at situations where we know why was it? I mean, just you go back to the security failures and you have to ask the question, which we do in the book, were the security failures, or was there someone at some point in the chain all the way up to the top? And by the way, Melania Trump has said the exact same thing as me at this, that something is wrong at the very top. Were these security failures, or were they intentional failures? Was this intentional neglect? Intentional neglect to not allow for Secret Service agents to give him the full detail, intentional neglect to not allow him to have the 27 minutes when they were chasing after this guy where they told him to go out on stage. They didn't tell him anything about it. They didn't tell his personal detail anything about it. And by the way, this type of stuff goes back to the times of Rome when the Praetorian Guard wanted to get up there, and if they didn't like the emperor, then guess who was going to take you out? It was the Praetorian Guards were going to take you out, because they became the ones who were essentially running the government. And so when you look at the national security agencies and you have a guy who is running that, and Tucker talks about this all the time, you have a guy who's running that's explicitly saying that he is going to take away their budgets, that he's going to shut down their black ops, which, by the way, he did shut down the black ops Operation Timber Sycamore that the the Obama administration, Obama and Biden had put together in Syria, when he's saying he's going to shut down all those things. And then those same agencies are the ones responsible for his security. You realize there's a massive conflict of interest here. This is the massive problem that President Trump is facing, that what we're all facing. And so I'm not saying that people should stop going to Trump rallies. I'm not saying that people should stop doing anything. I'm saying make sure you get your votes in, but also you have to get the truth out there. And so take this book and put it in people's hands to say, look, this is what's going on in your country right now.
Absolutely.
This is not something that he survived. This is something that's ongoing and is currently happening. And if you want to understand the truth about our government and the truth about the system under which we live, these are the people who they tried to take Trump out. They couldn't take him out, so they took Biden out. And now they're going to continue to do it again and again before he takes office. And I pray that I'm wrong, but I think there's a very strong possibility.
Oh, they're definitely going to try. So let me say this in closing. Go back, because you told me days before it broke, you said don't break it till Friday because the feds asked you not to, that all that information about the teams and the assassination plan and all the details, and then it all broke exactly as you told me. You're saying that your sources have told you that there is a Homeland Security memo that groups connected to, quote, Russia and Ukraine and that whole conflict are preparing to do something big in or around the election. Elaborate on that. That's big breaking news.
So, yeah, I'll just say it again. A very limited bulletin just went out to various federal law enforcement offices warning of potential election day and post-election day violence by, quote, those emotionally enthralled in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And Ryan Wesley Routh, this guy who we know was clearly inspired by this conflict. Obviously, he's mentally unwell. These are the type of people who get targeted for these things. Now they're saying that, oh, look, someone who's emotionally enthralled. So what does that mean? Is this more of these agents? Is this more of these assets that were sent over who had conducted training with the CIA-backed Azov Battalion are back in the United States and doing this? So look, no one's going to tell me that Ryan Wesley Routh was able to get that rifle by himself. And the FBI, there's a reason, by the way, that they're not releasing the information on him. And they're saying, oh, we have too much information. They're trying to push the date back. Judge Eileen Cannon down there in Miami is trying to fast track this thing because she wants to get the information out as fast as possible, November 14th. But Alex, everything is pointing to the fact that Ryan Wesley Routh more than likely was working with various groups. These groups have direct ties. Again, this guy, keep in mind, he was in Ukraine, in Kiev. Then suddenly he flies over to Istanbul, Turkey. Then he's in Taipei, Taiwan. And yet we're told that he has no funding. He has no bank accounts. He has no information. This guy's a ghost on paper. And yet he has two homes, one in Greensboro, North Carolina, and then another one all the way out in Honolulu, Hawaii. He's flying around to basically going on a CIA tour.
And his entire X account is linked to CIA high-level people.
And what did he say he wanted to do? He said he wanted to bring the Afghan fighters that were CIA trained into Ukraine. He was up there being interviewed by all this media, and yet we're supposed to be told that this guy was just a lone wolf. No, it's a joke. It's ridiculous. And I'm telling you, there are networks that are being activated right now.
So that's the war for America, guys, and that's what we're going to, the fight for freedom is ultimately going to be about. Little did I know when we were making these podcasts how deeply entrenched this whole thing would get and how difficult the struggle would be. I mean, they're targeting podcasts. They're targeting us. They're targeting individuals who would create content like this that's truthful. Hillary Clinton, all of them are out there mouthing the same words as their World Economic Forum, Council on Foreign Relations partners across Europe and across the world, that you cannot think these thoughts. Those are information crimes. Those are thought crimes. And you should be held accountable. And even in prison, in jail, and people all across America are. There's people going to jail for memes, guys. And we're going to steadily make this project. We're going to steadily do this work. And we're not coming through with some kind of like bullcrap, time-wasting, oh, look what the Simpsons predicted. You know what I mean? When that's relevant, we'll talk about it. But we're going to give you guys the straight dope, totally concentrated, 100% pure, straight hardcore truth. And that's what you're going to get. We're going to expose you to all kinds of authors and researchers and thinkers and pastors and podcasters and professors and all kinds of ideas that you have never heard before in your life, or you've never heard the way that we're going to lay it out for you. So join us, guys. Join the book club, Palindrome Book Club. If you want to go on Facebook and look up our little group. And we're going to try to take a run at YouTube, but you know what will happen when we do that. And right now, Rumble's the way, guys, for us. Rumble is one of the many new media avenues that we have to express these ideas, which are totally anathema, totally heretical, totally unacceptable expressions of the truth that these people will hate, right? And we go way past InfoWars. God bless Alex Jones and his whole team. We take it all the way in to the true core. We're not worried. We're not worried about this. We're doing this. We have an audience of one. The God is our audience, and we ultimately have to stand before him, and everything else is going to become epilogue, right? Everything else is going to be epilogue once we get to the point where we realize, okay, I'm dying, and now I'm going to go, and my eternal, immortal soul is going to go stand before the Lord. I'm going to account for everything I did. That's all that matters to me. That's all that should matter to you. I love my wife. I love my kids. I hope they do well. Hope they learn, and hope the Lord blesses them. But I can't have any control over their destiny. No amount of buying and stockpiling rations and ammo is going to do anything to save anyone around here. If we don't have a relationship with the Lord, if our relationship with the Lord is not concrete and totally strong, you're not going to make it. And even when you have a strong relationship with the Lord, he might choose at any time to bring you home and to use you in the purpose of his sovereign dominion over all reality. He might just do what he wants with you, and you might end up dying. This is all about what happens next. All this life is a transient, temporary dream before we wake up to the truth of eternal reality. Just like when you woke up this morning, what were you dreaming about during that brief temporal state, that temporary state? That's what this is. This life has a beginning and an end, just like your dream state does. When you fall asleep, you start to dream, and then before you know it, the dream is over, and you're trying to remember it, and you've woken up to reality. And that's what's happening. That's why Jesus said you have to be born again. We're not fully born yet here. We've been born here, and then there's the next stage, the next level we have to go into to be born into the eternal state. And when you find yourself there, everything that you did here is going to become the only balance, the only median epitomization of what your final destiny is going to be, because you're going to choose it. You're choosing your final destiny now by everything you do and say here. It's not going to be up to the Lord to sit there and like, I choose for you to go here, for you to go there. You've already chosen it. You've already made the choices, because what did Jesus say? He said, that which you judge against others will be judged against yourself. Your own judgment, your own measurement line that you use against others will be used against you. So you better learn this quick, or else everything we're doing here is completely meaningless and complete vanity and complete absurdity and madness and folly. So let us avoid this folly. All right, let us come together. Let us, when you see that I'm wrong, hit me with that email, straighten me out. I love it. All right, that's all there is to it. We need your support. We need your prayers, and we need you to recognize that we're the next generation of the info war. And, you know, God help us. God help us for whatever it is that we're going to face. We don't have the ability to get $70 million new dollars to shake off our $1 billion bankruptcy lawsuit or whatever, right? And that pattern of total injustice and malevolent weaponization attacking Alex Jones, whether you love him or not, whether you think he's wrong or not, that kind of deceit and total malpractice of law in order to attack and silence your enemies is going to become commonplace. Like he says, they just practiced that on him. They just tried that out. All they did is demonstrate how it's going to work. And so that's the kind of maelstrom and the kind of fight that we're entering into here. So thank you guys for joining. And now you have listened to these first 5 videos, and now you understand the total onslaught that the war for history, the history wars is, then we expect you to continue on with us, to support us, to reach out, tell us you're here, send us an email, give us feedback. We love the feedback. We need the critical insight from you all the time, so we don't get pigeonholed. We don't end up like InfoWars, just talking about the Federal Reserve System over and over again. And Zionists, which, I mean, God bless them. Like I said, I support them. I'm going to continue to buy the shirts, and, you know, God help us if they're working for the enemy, guys. If they're some kind of FBI psyop program against us, it's totally devastating, you know. And we can be forgiven for thinking that, right? We could be forgiven for wondering that because of the level of deception and the level of outrageous, maniacal, seething hatred that you see coming from these New World Order elitists and globalists, these ultramontane papal knighthood rulers that are totally committed to destroying the enemies of the papacy. So we'll talk about that more, and thank you, and we will continue to invite you to come deeper into this level of knowledge and to initiate further into these levels of true historic and intellectual illumination, and you will see that history is nothing like what they told you in your middle school and high school and college classrooms. Nothing. It's totally deformed and totally realigned and revised to tell a completely different story and hide the actual unmistakable reality of the truth. So welcome, guys. Welcome to Looking Glass Forum, and welcome to the first level of initiation to the book club and the Church of the Black Sheep. And you have found Skeleton Key 318.